There's a really, really lovely passage in that second letter. A really lovely line. You might want to have a peek at it, perhaps. It goes, this is Paul right at the end. He's saying to the Philippians, I miss you very much, dear friends. You are my joy and my crown. You are my joy and my crown. And I wonder if we are anybody's joy or crown. Do we know if anybody considers us their joy or their crown? Or perhaps we have people whom we consider our joy and our crown. They're very tender words. And St. Paul obviously has a very soft part in his heart for the Philippians. And this sort of tenderness that we see in St. Paul is actually, although perhaps we might not recognize it, present in the first reading. It's there in the first reading. Father, what are you talking about? Have you had a look at the first reading? The first reading is this very strange reading where Abraham, or he's not called Abraham at this time, he's called Abram. God hasn't changed his name. Abram is making a covenant with God and he's chopping up some animals. And there's some sort of strange ritual going on. And that at first glance you might not think, well, how does that speak to us of this kind of really tender love that God has for us? You are my joy and my crown. How does this kind of very brutal thing speak of it? Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you how it speaks. What God is doing, God and Abraham are doing, what they're doing is they're making a covenant. Now, a covenant is like an agreement, except it's not the same as an ordinary legal agreement. A covenant, when two people enter into covenant, they come together and they become one. They are united in the covenant. And this story we hear about the animals being cut in half is an example of a very ancient form of making a covenant. So they got the animals. Thankfully, we've got two sides here. They cut the animals in half, place half of the animal on one side, half on the other. And the idea is, as you make a covenant, you make the terms of the agreement. I'll do this, you'll do that. Okay? Now, God has said to Abram, I will make your descendants, look at the stars. Can you count them? No. Well, that's how many children, descendants you're going to have. I promise I'll do that. So they've made this agreement. Abram would serve God, and God would give him as many descendants as the stars. And the idea is that both of them, I need can I take you as a I need, what do you call this person? Help. So the idea is we would say, we agree, do we agree?
We agree.
We agree, wonderful, fantastic. We're going to walk through these parts here, animals on either side. And we've walked through them, and that's the agreement. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Okay. So, and the idea is that as you do that, if I break my part of the argument, the agreement, then let what happened to those animals happen to me. And if she broke her side, well, let what happened to those animals happen to her. Okay? Pretty gruesome, yes? But that's the agreement. Now, what happened in that story was that Abram fell asleep. And in the sleep, have a look at your sheets. Have a look at your sheets. In his sleep, something passed through the parts of the animals. Something passed through. It wasn't Abram. It was a firebrand. And the firebrand is God. There should be two people going through, but only one went through. God is saying, if I break my side of the covenant, let what happened these animals happen to me. God is never going to break his side of the covenant. God is always faithful. He's safe. He's secure that he's going to be faithful. Abraham, not so much. But Abram doesn't go through the sides. Abram goes, God does, and he says, that's it. The covenant is made. Abram doesn't have to go through. What God has done, and this is where it's God showing his tenderness and love. God knows that Abram and his descendants are not capable, that's you and me, are not capable of being faithful. We're pretty rubbish when it comes to faithfulness. He knows that. And the terms are, if you're not faithful, let what happens to these animals happen to me. God takes Abram's place. He walks through for Abram and his descendants. If you're not faithful, Abram, I will take the punishment. Isn't that love? Isn't that tenderness? Isn't that compassion? He knows we can't. And he does it for us. And he does it for us. This is what Jesus does. We have been continually unfaithful. We never listen to God. And we suffer the consequences. But God takes on the ultimate consequences. This is the Exodus. Moses and Elijah speaking about the passing that Jesus was to accomplish. The passing, the Exodus, his death, where he took on the punishment for us. This thing here is not automatic for us. It's not a free pass. It's not a get out of jail free card. How many people play Monopoly here? Monopoly? Anybody played Monopoly here? You don't start the game with a get out of jail free card. You have to get the get out of jail free card during the game. And it's the same with us. We have to get the get out of jail free card during the game. And how do we get the get out of jail free card? How do we get that free pass, as it were? Well, St. Paul tells us, in a way. He says, be united in following my rule of life. It's Jesus' rule of life. Be united in following it and study those you see doing it. Take as your models those who are already doing this and study them as you used to study us. Look at those who are living the Christian life and follow their behavior. Look at how they're living and try to live the same way. Study them. You who are preparing for confirmation, this is a big part of what you're doing. Studying it. How am I supposed to live the Christian life? How am I supposed to live as Jesus has called me to live? The Father to the apostles says it most clearly. Listen to him. Listen to him. You're preparing for confirmation. In your preparation for confirmation, you will need to study and you will need to listen. Folks, parents, parishioners, you're preparing for Easter. And in your preparation for Easter, you will need to do the same thing. Everybody here, we are all preparing for heaven. Are we not preparing for heaven? Or maybe not. Are we preparing for heaven? And so we will need to do exactly the same thing. study, listen, and act.